The story of Elara and the fall of the Iron Tyrant. Elara was born in the shadow of a great forest, raised by elders who remembered the time before the Iron Tyrant seized the land. From a young age, she learned the secrets of the Earthkeepers, how to find the mushrooms that healed, how to blend herbs into powerful medicines, and how to read the omens of the sky and soil. Sensing a shift in the balance of the web, Elara ventured into a sacred glade and consumed the eye of the divine. As the sacred vision took hold, she expected to witness the familiar unfolding of ancestral wisdom, but instead, she found herself standing in a world she did not recognize. The air was thick with acrid smoke, the rivers ran dry, and the land, once lush, lay scarred and lifeless. Before her stood a young woman working a loom, clad in rags of a forgotten age, her hair streaked with soot, her hands calloused from struggle. When she turned her gaze upon Elara, her eyes burned with a fire older than time. "Do you know me?" the woman asked. Elara hesitated, for there was something achingly familiar about her. "No, but I feel as though I should." "I am Circe," she whispered, "your great-granddaughter. And this is the world left behind when the web is severed." Circe lifted her hand, and the wind howled through the ruins of what was once a great forest, now reduced to twisted husks of trees. They forgot Elara. They let the web unravel. They built towers that swallowed the sky, and fields that grew food poisoned by their own hands. They killed the fungi, the forests, the rivers. They silenced the land until it could no longer whisper its wisdom. Elara felt her breath falter. How did this happen? "It began with fear," Circe said, her voice edged with sorrow. "The tyrant may fall, but the hunger for dominion never dies. They feared the old ways, called them superstition. They outlawed the sacrament, hunted the Earthkeepers, and when the people were blind to the web, they chained themselves to false gods of metal and greed." She turned to Elara, eyes pleading. "You must act, not just to overthrow the tyrant, but to ensure the remembering never fades. If you do not, all that you fight for will be swallowed by time, and your children's children will inherit a world that cannot heal." Elara reached for Circe's hands, but the vision began to unravel. The winds grew deafening, the land crumbled beneath her feet, and Circe's form dissolved like mist, her final words echoing in Elara's mind. "Do not let them forget." With a jolt, Elara awoke beneath the great oak of the sacred glade, her heart pounding. The sky above her was as it had been, the air still thick with the scent of damp earth, but the weight of the vision pressed into her very soul. She knew now that this war was not merely against the tyrant, it was against forgetting itself. Returning to the elders, she shared the vision that had come to her in the depths of silence. In solemn agreement, they stepped forward and offered her a sacred gift, a branch from the staff of Orin, broken from the spore-bearer's own hand and blessed with radiant spores. It was no relic of the past, but a living thread of the web, shaped for her and her alone. As she wrapped her fingers around it, mushrooms bloomed from its core, caps glowing with soft, inner light. The elders bowed. She had been chosen. Whether with or without the shard, she realized the power of the mycelium had bonded to her very essence. With reverence, she vowed to stand against the Iron Tyrant, who sought to sever humanity from the land. But the tyrant's grip only tightened. He feared the knowledge of the herbalists, for it taught self-sufficiency, freedom, and the power of nature over kings. His rising empire forged a new order, a faith that rejected the old gods, outlawing direct communion with the divine. The sacred mushrooms, long used by the Earthkeepers to bridge the realms of mortals and the gods, were declared blasphemous, their use punishable by death. His priests branded them as the tools of witches and heretics, and so his soldiers were sent to burn the groves, salt the fields, and hunt those who carried the old wisdom. Elara's family was taken, but she fled into the deep forest, seeking refuge in the sacred groves of the Druids, where the mycelium spoke to her in dreams. The web guided her to a hidden valley, where the ancient red-capped mushroom, crowned with ivory speckles, flourished in secrecy. Alongside it bloomed datura, a plant that unlocked the doors of perception. Through these gifts, she devised a plan, not of open war, but of quiet resistance. She gathered foxglove and monkshood, herbs of deadly precision, to weaken the blood of the tyrant's guards. She brewed poppies and valerian, slipping them into the wells of the capital, dulling the wits of the oppressors. She taught the rebels to gather henbane and belladonna, clouding the minds of their enemies before battle. And she prepared the warriors with sacred fungi, giving them visions to see through deception and strike where the tyrant's defenses were weakest. The rebellion began as whispers in the night. Farmers and hunters, once broken by the tyrant's rule, took up arms forged from their own plows and axes. The Earthkeepers, long hidden in the hills, emerged to spread the old ways. Fires were set in the grain stores, the wells were sealed, and the great citadel of the Iron King, once thought impenetrable, became a prison of fear and hunger. One fateful night, a storm swept across the land, the heavens roaring with fury. The rebels struck as lightning split the sky, pouring through the city gates as the guards, weakened by Elara's poisons, fell into disarray. The sacred mycelium, long buried beneath the city stones, began to bloom, its roots cracking through the foundation of the tyrant's halls. Captured in the final days of the siege, Elara was dragged before the Iron King. He stood amidst the ruins of his crumbling empire, his once mighty palace now overrun with vines and fungi. Bound in chains, Elara stood unbowed, her gaze fierce as fire. "You may bind my hands," she said, "but the mycelium runs through me and beneath your feet. The gods whisper in the soil, and they will rise again." The tyrant laughed, but even as he did, mushrooms sprouted through the cracks of his broken throne. Rust spread along Elara's chains, the stone walls quaked, and the palace crumbled as the force of the mycelium reclaimed what was stolen. The people, no longer afraid, stormed the palace and cast him down. The Earthkeepers, long hunted, emerged in triumph, carrying Elara's name like a banner of defiance. And when the tyrant fell, the land he had poisoned exhaled. The rains came, the fungi bloomed, and the mycelium whispered, "The cycle turns, the web endures." And so the Earthkeepers rose once more. The land healed, and the knowledge of the herbalists was restored. The forests, once burned, grew thick again, and the sacred groves flourished. And through it all, the mycelium endured, whispering its lessons to those who listened. Thus ended the reign of the Iron Tyrant, and thus began the age of the Earthkeepers. The web endures, and those who listen shall walk in peace. Eat and see.